just going back to the example that you had, for example, for the milk project.
Uh-huh.
So was that a project? So was the end user going to use that device in India, or which country was that aimed for?
It was consumed in India and Bangladesh.
Okay, because what I'm
Yeah.
thinking is also, or maybe a little bit about the example you gave about the automotive industry. So if you were tasked to develop a product to do with the automotive industry, and obviously you're going to need specific industry related information from someone in that sector, um, how do you deal with that if that in first of all, do you have partners in India that you work with, or would you just approach a company as you're speaking with the client? And what if that particular expertise doesn't exist in the country where you're located, and even in the country where the client is located? So it's in a third country. How would you go about that?
So what we usually do is we reach out to as many experts as possible. Now, when I
Hmm.
say experts, I try to find somebody in a consultancy mode because they can have a demand-based relation with us. And in case of a customer like automotive, usually it's a tier one OEM who approaches us. So they usually have domain expertise in house. It has not happened with me where a company has come in the automotive segment
Yeah,
where they have no background.
that makes sense. Yeah.
But when it happens, I have some good relations with universities around, with some people who have retired from the automotive industry. I have some good connects in Germany who of people who have worked in automotive companies. So we do maintain our transparency with the customer and tell him that okay, this is something that needs expertise. You
Hmm.
need somebody who has worked for 20 years in this domain. I have a person for you. If you don't have, you can contact him. You discuss you negotiate the costs because uh, costs and terms and conditions because there's a shared IP involved in it, and we'll take the job up.
Yeah.
So that's our approach.
Sure. And how does the certification side of things work? So how um, is it obviously is the client's responsibility to make sure that the product that they're developing it doesn't have any IP restrictions or any special certification required in the country where it's
Right.
intended to be used. Is
Right.
that right?
So yes. So in most customers, we have an indemnity sign because either I would have to put the research into doing the background search about the product to find how much IP is existing on it and whatnot. A better option for me is that I have an indemnity where my company is indemnified in case of any legal charges on the customer. And I try to maintain as much as what you call as ethical cleanliness when it comes to copying a device. So it has happened to me in the past once where I was given a device to make, but then I realized, it's a it's an exact copy of something that's already in the market in another country, and then I refuse to take up the job.
Hmm.
So I try to maintain my ethical cleanliness, but and I do have an indemnity. So
Sure.
it rarely happens, but it's better to be safe.
What if a client comes to you with a product and they say, this is a product made by so and so company, and these are the features that are IP protected. So help me make this same product, but let's get around the IP so we can change the design of that specific feature. Um, so you'd be able to work with them there and help them. So in a way, then you're kind of just um, developing that
Yes.
in a way, you're kind of evolving that product.
Right. So this is a businessman's dilemma. So the engineer says that you shouldn't take up this job because you're circumventing an IP. The
Hmm.
businessman says this is what you need to make the company bigger. So one is the indemnity helps me keeping myself safe.
Hmm.
And if there is an ethical approach in circumventing the IP, I am good to work with it because uh, we have to put our own research, put our own effort into getting an alternative solution, and that's not wrong.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's a balance. I have to choose. I mean, this is
Yeah,
what I call a classic dilemma for a businessman and an engineer.
yes, sounds good. Also, at the start, you mentioned um, in product development, we have the software element and the hardware element, and um, how those two things are progressing um, isn't necessarily going hand in hand. So there was a time I remember when hardware was developing, robotics were developing so fast that everyone was thinking these robotics, they're going to replace um, the need for menial workers, for factory workers, and those people will be out of work. And then suddenly we had ChatGPT come along. That kind of changed the market a little bit again. And then all of a sudden, the people at the top of uh, the skill set, doctors, lawyers, engineers, all of a sudden accountants, they started thinking, oh my God, at some stage this can overtake us and this can replace us. Um, so it just seems at the moment, I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, it just seems at the moment that software seems to have developed far further, and the robotics and the kind of hardware side of things is still struggling to keep up with that development. Is that right, or am I not
Uh,
seeing?
it is right in a way, because if you see I mean, there was a research I saw that the time required for the product to reach X million users, and ChatGPT was the fastest. But at
Yes,
one angle, I see that your hardware costs as a customer, hardware comes at a specific cost. I mean, to have, let's say, a floor cleaning robot at my house, it's going to cost me some money and an operational expense.
yes,
If you look at, these robots that clean glasses or floor cleaner or whatever, they come at a cost. Software is something whose initial capital is not always really high. I mean, I can use Chat GPT for free.
hmm,
Second is, it is more relatable to people. As a hardware, it is bound to certain applications that it is allowed. But Chat GPT, I can ask it recipe. So if I give it a list of ingredients I have, and I say I like Indian food or whatever, it can suggest me a good dish I could cook. It could help me plan a trip. It could help me solve a code. So you have multiple uh, applications to it,
yeah,
and that's why I feel we look at it as extremely progressive. I mean, right now we are dealing with Chat GPT into everything, whereas hardware is not that easily penetrable.
yes,
So I would say that software right now is at its ripe. It's being what you say. Uh, it's the apple of everyone's eye. Everybody
yes.
likes it, and we don't know how big the bubble is going to go. But there has been cases. So the international stock markets have gone a little up and down on the AI focused companies, but we don't know how it's going to turn up, or rather, we don't have the right information as common men.
I think you're right. At the moment, every company is just competing with each other to have an element of AI in that they can kind of show. Um, my producer and I, we've been looking at different software for podcast recording, and we've tried a few different ones, and they all have their pros and cons. But the most recent one we tried um, had all the bells and whistles. It had AI capability and it had all of those great things. But then it wasn't compatible with Android devices. And I was thinking, this is like ridiculous because that's the most basic thing.
Yes.
It's working on Apple devices. Now get it to work on Android. But instead, they were probably deciding that they need to compete with the others and make sure it's AI compatible. So let's just put all the focus there. So I think that's kind of the rush, the mad rush that companies are seeing at the moment.
So this is happening in India as well. I see a lot of startups, a lot of companies who are suddenly saying that we are AI enabled.
Yes.
And I have a big question mark when it comes to it. Is what are you referring to as AI over here?
Yes.
So I have a feeling that so in 2015 and 14, everybody was talking that we are IoT enabled. And today we are talking about that, we are AI enabled. So I feel that people want to jump on the bandwagon. It's a good marketing strategy. Uh, you get investors to put in
Yes,
money,
that's it.
and
It's
a
all
mediocre
investors.
product can get money. A mediocre product can get money.
Yeah.
That's I mean, I don't know how people take it, but that's how it is looked at. Another 10 years back, everybody was talking about cloud. So we are a cloud solution.
Yes, I
We are no
remember.
longer a service. So you look back 15 years or so, and you were talking cloud, then you move to IoT, then you move to these community apps that flourished during the lockdown time. Everybody was at home. They needed
Yes.
conferencing apps, community
Zoom.
conferencing apps to
Yes.
play games.
Mhm.
Zoom
Came
was
out
one
of
of the
that.
biggest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Zoom got a lot of attention during that era. So
Yes.
it's a phase. It's a phase. I feel that if you are confident of your research, your work in that, then probably you don't need those buzzwords.